Welcome into the Stokastic.com UFC live before locks here to get you ready for UFC Long Island that starts in 1 hour from now. A little late morning, early afternoon MMA prelims there on ESPN Plus, and your main card will be on ABC, 2 p.m. each time, headlined by Yair Rodriguez and Brian Ortega. Key matchup there in the featherweight division. Who knows? Yair Rodriguez is saying if he gets the win, he's been told he will be next for Alexander Volkanovski. So we're going to break this one down for you over the next hour. Answer any questions that you may have. Of course, you can leave those questions right here in the YouTube chat. You can also leave those over in Discord. We'll get to those questions over the next hour. We are sponsored by PrizePicks. We'll talk about some of those props over at PrizePicks. I mentioned on Thursday's strategy show, I like that Sumadarji under 12.5 fight time. Well, that's not there anymore. That number is down to 10, which I like that 12.5 number more than I like the 10 number. But of course, as always, I am joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Good morning, Pete.
Yeah.
So you say good afternoon. No, it's good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Wake the hell up. Let's go. Let's make some lineups. Let's talk some fights. And we were talking before the show. If Jason or Tyler or any of you guys fall asleep during daytime MMA, it's an absolute shame because it's a rarity to have daytime MMA. So you guys need to soak it up, enjoy it. And yeah, I can't wait for it, obviously.
You know, I was, let's just say I got up a little early this morning. I was, my body at 3 a.m. decided it was time to get up. So I was crunching lines about 4 o'clock this morning.
Yeah, I mean, good. Like I was crunching lineups on Thursday in hopes that we had no cancellations. And then final touches this morning, checking out ownership on stokastic.com, using our tools, kind of just comparing and contrasting with my lineups and seeing where I can get different from the field. And man, I'm amped, obviously.
And our tools and data were recently updated over at Stokastic.com for today's slate. So you got to check those out over there. You know, as I was looking at that top fighter tool, Pete, the first thing that stuck out to me is the second fight of the night. And that is Dwight Grant taking on Dustin Stoltzfus. Dwight Grant, 8,900, Stoltzfus, 7,300. A low-owned fight on both sides of the equation, which we talked about that on Thursday. But the other thing is I'm looking at the betting odds for this one, and the fact of this has major line movement has happened over the last 24 hours where Dwight Grant, he opened up as a minus 165 betting favorite. He is now essentially the underdog at minus 105, minus 115 for Dustin Stoltzfus. So, like, I think this could be the key to the slate.
Yeah, and we don't have this happen too often, but, you know, significant line movement, you would like to think a lot of people are waiting to weigh-ins to see how Dwight Grant looked, right? And he has fought at 185 pounds in the past. I feel like he's relatively undersized for middleweight. I typically a decent welterweight, lackluster volume, good pop in his shots. So he could be one shot away from winning the bout against Dustin Stoltzfus, but Stoltzfus has been pretty durable throughout his career. And I feel like he's the better minute winner and the guy who's able to win a lot more because of the grappling exchanges and the grappling upside. So a lot of people feel like they're starting to flock towards the Stoltzfus side. I like the Stoltzfus side on Thursday, and I like it even more. I'm not overconfident because I'm not in love with his skill set, but I'm picking him to win the fight, and I think the grappling could be the difference maker and just the strength too. And in addition to that, Jason, right, we have Da-Un Jung and Dustin Jacoby having significant line movement as well. So you have essentially 2 underdogs that are now basically favorites or close to being favorites on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, I think I continue as I think about the Dustin Jacoby and Da-Un Jung fight is what Dustin Jacoby said to me about, 2.5 weeks ago, where he said, he's like, look, you're going to be prepared for everything that can happen in a fight, but he truly expects that this is going to be a kickboxing matchup, which is a type of fight that Dustin Jacoby is one. I think a lot of people have to realize Dustin Jacoby is unbeaten over the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, I mean, you look at since he came back to MMA after that run there in Glory Kickboxing, he's been on a great roll here. Sam, I appreciate you in the super chat. He goes, West Coast here. Yes, I know we're spoiled 99% of the time with sports, but setting an alarm for 6:30 a on a Saturday to sit on the couch is dumb. No, it's not, bro. No, it is not.
You're going to have a productive day, Sam. And
first off, I'm jealous of people who live on the West Coast.
Right.
Y'all are used to this afternoon MMA. Us on the East Coast, we don't get this often. We got back-to-back weeks of this. Next week, we got UFC London. That's a 12 p.m. Eastern lock time.
God, I had no idea. I'm so pumped too. This is fantastic.
Your boys fight. How did you not know?
You think I can't, like, of course I know my boys fighting, but the number one thing I check is not the time of the slate. Like, that's fantastic. It's a nice little surprise, and I cannot wait for it. And Sam, you're going to have a productive day. And then just think, you have a Saturday night to go out and do whatever the heck you want. So we also got Josh Engelman in the chat, which is awesome. Loving when Josh is here, able to make the show. And he's saying, let's go, Grant. Definitely a contrarian play of the slate. And as far as like who I think has more finishing upside, I do think that a KO from Grant is extremely, viable, because we did see him hurt Daniel Rodriguez on the feet and almost pick up that finish. So I think he's dangerous. It's not where I'm going to be flocking to the masses of the ownership towards Stoltzfus, or just because of the line movement. I feel like it's still going under owned, as you mentioned on Thursday.
Sam with another super chat asking about best DK captain and best not popular DK captain. To me, and when I mentioned about crunching lineups at 4 a.m. this morning, I was getting to a lot of Brian Ortega. I think he's the best captain play over there.
Yes.
Him, Yair Rodriguez, 25 minutes to work with. I don't think this thing's going 25 minutes. I think that a stoppage is going to come at some point. I was listening to Ortega's interview with John Morgan earlier this week, and I really just love what he talked about. And he's mentioning the fact of he needed to get back to his roots. He needed to get back to his jiu-jitsu roots. And this has been the narrative. If you listen to any Brian Ortega interview this week, it's all he's talking about. He goes, I need to get back to my roots. I need to realize why I am in the position that I am. And being a Brian Ortega backer, you love hearing that. I mean, but he also knows, he goes, but I also know I have the problem where I get hit in the face.
Yeah.
And I want to make it a brawl. He said that has been a big emphasis of this camp, is making sure sticking to what he does and not letting the fight, emotions take over.
Yeah. So, I mean, to answer Sam's question and to kind of just piggyback off of what you're saying, for the DK captain contest, I think Ortega is clearly the best captain. Mid-priced, has multiple paths to victory. And if you are an MMA bettor, you want to tend to favor the guy who has multiple paths to victory and is the more well-rounded athlete. So Brian Ortega can compete on the feet, because we have seen Yair Rodriguez struggle in the boxing department against the Korean Zombie until the most Hail Mary elbow of all time was landed, and then he picked up that win. He looked better in the Max Holloway fight for sure. If Ortega takes this to the mat, a submission win is extremely live, and it could be, moments upon him grasping that submission win. I mean, look what he did to Alexander Volkanovski. We listened to Brian Ortega in the media talk about how he wants to get back to his roots and how he wants to, show his true self of how he is in the gym under the lights. And I've always talked about it, and it's been a big struggle of mine throughout my career, is I perform at an extremely high level in the gym, and I've had inconsistent success under the lights. And, as you get more accustomed to competition, you're starting to showcase more of your true skill set. And I do think that, Ortega being in this position, you could actually see him go out there and take Yair to Takedown City. Completely viable. If he is lured into a brawl, similar to how he has been in the past, that's where Yair is like super value, even in a loss. Like, look what he did against Max Holloway, right? And Max took him down, doesn't have the same submission game that Brian Ortega does, but, I think it's like almost 50-50 or 60-40 with my exposure for Ortega and Yair Rodriguez.
I will throw a maybe low owned, maybe under the radar DK captain.
Okay.
Miesha Tate could rack up points with takedowns, control time. This is her first fight at 125 pounds. I thought she looked good on the scale yesterday. Lauren Murphy, we've talked about the fact of, this fight was supposed to take place 2 weeks ago, COVID. I think if you're looking at other fights, okay, where could you see a high score come from? If Tate is able to incorporate the takedowns, I think that's, someone to potentially look at there.
Yeah, I don't hate the Tate call at all. My only worry is just that it goes 15 minutes. I am predicting that it's going to go 15. I think everybody is. The difference maker in a decision is obviously either volume or takedowns. And Miesha Tate has the takedowns in her back pocket. I think Lauren Murphy can make this competitive. I truthfully think the line's a little bit wide and a little bit disrespectful towards Lauren Murphy, who's shown to be pretty consistent within the division. And there are some unknown factors. Like you don't always have instant success when you drop down a weight class. When you cut a tremendous amount of weight, even though Miesha Tate looks like she's done it the correct way, gas tank is something that can suffer. Gas tank can suffer. So the later this fight goes, I wonder if the cut starts to show some effects on her performance. I am favoring her to win the bout. And I do think that she's a nice contrarian pick. I feel like she might be going slightly under-owned if I am correct. I mean, I'm neutral to that ownership right there. Like I think it's fine where it's at 8,800. It's absolutely fine for the regular slate. For the captain contest, I feel like she's going to be a little bit under owned in that position. So it's a nice little contrarian pick.
Of course, be sure to smash that thumbs up button right here on YouTube. Subscribe to Stokastic. Hit that notification bell so you know a show is live here on channel. Of course, coming up right after us will be the MLB Strategy Show. And today's free premium day and tools are MLB ownership projections. But hey, we got something else for you as well. If you want to try out all of our tools for MLB DFS, you now can. We have set all of our tools and projections for night slates 100% free. So it's a great way to test out what we have to offer if you're on the fence about subscribing. Be sure to check out everything we got going on over there at Stokastic.com. Of course, I'll be checking out the MLB Strategy Show too, because one of the ways I like to build my bankroll is head-to-heads, and that's how I watch our strategy show. Check out all the tools. A great way to build your bankroll, whether you're playing on DraftKings or on Fanduel. Primarily, I am a DraftKings player. Corey, I appreciate you in the super chat. He says, I know there's no guarantees in MMA, but what would be 3 under 8K fighters that you had a better than 50-50 chance to win on DraftKings?
Well, first off, I'm going to just, kind of answer that question with the odds shifting as well, but also what I think is pretty likely. So I think that Dustin Stoltzfus and Daeun Jung kind of are like 1 and 2 because of the line movement, but also how I foresee their paths to victory. Daeun Jung can compete on the feet with Dustin Jacoby. Clearly not the best path to victory, though. He needs to mix in some takedowns to win some minutes and win some rounds. Same thing for Dustin Stoltzfus. So those would be 2. The third fighter, it's tough. I might say Ricky Simone. It's a very compelling matchup and one that I'm a little bit torn on. I am favoring, Jack Short just slightly, but the value is incredible. It's just very difficult to see who's going to have the edge or who's going to get the nod, because I feel like it's going to be a very back and forth contest.
That's one of those fights that I want to be under the field on for that one, okay, Pete. And the reason being, with both of these guys having a grappling base of what happens if that just nullifies and it's a fight that plays out in the feet, then essentially I'm hoping for a stoppage at some point, which I would favor Jack Short in that department. That's just, it's one of those things of thinking about a fantasy score upside, as opposed to how the fight could go. I'm just kind of worried about that, from a fantasy upside, that it doesn't ultimately make that fight optimal.
Yeah, I mean, Marcos is kind of saying the same thing. He's taking a stand and being low owned on that fight. We have D. Spearman asking about the performance of that fight. And it's going to be a very common pick because you see the box scores and you see how they have takedowns galore and just good volume. But I can always say that when you have 2 talented athletes going there at the level that they're at, sometimes their strengths nullify each other and you have a dud as far as a DFS score goes. But Jason, we almost have 400 people in here checking us out early Saturday morning. If you guys could do us a favor, get us over 100 likes. We really, really appreciate it. We're here to answer your questions all the way up to a lock at 11 a.m.
Sam with another super chat says, Ducote looked so calm at weigh-ins. I think she crushes Penne. I feel like everyone is disregarding this fight. I would not say everyone is disregarding this fight. I think, look, for Jessica Penne, her key to winning this fight as an underdog will be utilizing the grappling. For Emily Ducote, to me, it's about making this at kickboxing range.
Yeah. So for me, I really like Emily Ducote, but I'm also worried about UFC octagon jitters. It's a real thing when fighters haven't fought at the top level. but some comparable performances in Ducote's career is fighting on Bellator. Like the Bellator lights and the production and all the anxiety is pretty similar to the UFC. It's still not the UFC, but I think that Ducote's experience with those promotions is going to work wonders here, despite going up against a UFC veteran, Jessica Penne, who really bails herself out of bad positions with Hail Mary sub attempts, and she finds them with great success. So I think the fact that Ducote's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt can avoid some of these dangerous positions, I hope. And the striking is clearly on Ducote's side. I think that she can even pick up a finish here over Jessica Penne, especially being the younger, more dangerous athlete. I got to Ducote plenty, honestly, because the 8,200, 8,000 fight sneaks into the optimal lineup so much, as we talk about all the time. Because if people are hurting for underdogs, they're going to target that 8,200, 8,000 fight. It just makes lineup construction that much easier.
Of course, when we did the strategy show on Thursday, the FanDuel salaries were not out. Looking over to FanDuel salaries, Brian Ortega, $21, Jair Rodriguez, $16. I think that's a fight to target when you're looking at your MVPs for that matchup. Other, like in terms of the other MVPs, I'm looking at someone like a Sumandarji at $22. Another one I would say that I would look at, I mean, there's some value. I mean, Stolfus at $14. I'm not necessarily as an MVP play, but I think as a value play, he's a nice value play over there. Ricky Simon, I think, is another good value play at $13. And the other one that could be interesting is the Charles Jourdain Shane Burgos matchup, because obviously both of these guys are volume strikers. The only problem you have is, can Jourdain score enough in a loss to still make you into an optimal lineup?
Yeah, I mean, probably not, right? It could be a high volume affair. I think that's going to be an absolute banger, as we've talked about all week. And Jourdain's going to test the durability of Burgos, and the durability of Burgos has been inconsistent at times. So I think a finish from Jourdain is much more likely than him beating him over 15 minutes, clipping and hurting Shane Burgos as he's aggressive in his hometown. We'll have to see. On FanDuel, I do think that there are some misprices just because of the line movement, and Ducote and Jung, middle priced at 15 is fine. Stolfus at 14 is fine. Ricky Simon 13, but man, we know on FanDuel takedowns aren't weighed as heavily. They still help, but we want to find strikers on that platform. So somebody with some high KO upside is like a Sumu Derji, a Punahele Soriano, kind of like 1A, 1B.
I will tell you, I was a little surprised on the Amanda Lemos ownership over on DraftKings. I thought it might be a little higher. Clearly for Michelle Waterson Gomez to walk away as a victor today, she has to utilize her grappling. If this thing's a stand-up fight, to me, this is Amanda Lemos all day long.
I'm going to slightly disagree. I think that she can't box with Amanda Lemos. She can strike with Amanda Lemos, but she needs to, be on her best Wonderboy Thompson impression, utilizing her nice kicks, her side kicks, her long, lengthy combinations, similar to how she used to in the octagon. If she goes out there and boxes, I totally agree with you. That's Lemos all day. Favor her with the power, favor her with the combinations, and that killer instinct too. I do think that Waterson's going to look to test the grappling of Amanda Lemos. Head and arm throws were something that she had a lot of success with. And I do think she has a slight jiu-jitsu advantage, to be honest. Like, she can capture the neck pretty well. She did it against Paige Van Zandt. And we have seen her pick up some wins by just, being the more well-rounded athlete in there. It's from being a former atom weight. I feel like she's at a significant strength disadvantage here. And Lemos picking up takedowns is something nobody's talking about. But I feel like if, the opportunity presents itself, I can honestly see Lemos power doubling her, tripping her to the mat, putting her there, and trying to brutalize her from top position too.
Corey, appreciate the super chat. He says, can Burns pull this off, made weight, and look good? And I just know if he does pull it off, it's not going to make my partner here pretty happy.
So this is a big worry of mine. And the Bill Algeo Burns fight, I think, is crucial to the slate. I really think it's crucial to the slate. And it seems like ownership's agreeing with me, especially for one side. Now, I think a lot of people are projecting, Bill Algeo in a much higher regard than Burns, because I do think that despite Burns picking up some finishing wins, he hasn't looked the best in them, right? It's almost like he's bailed himself out of jail several times. He gets rocked in numerous fights or just wobbled a little bit, touched up on the feet. And his jiu-jitsu is that dangerous that it just takes one submission attempt and the fight's over. The issue with Bill Algeo in this fight for me, and I'm a huge Bill Algeo backer today. I made a large percentage of my lineups with Bill Algeo, is how he gives up his back when he's trying to work back to his feet. His takedown defense is improving. It's not good. I don't think that Herbert Burns has fantastic takedowns, but he clearly has the finishing submission edge over Bill Algeo. And as he gives up his back, he's constantly fighting off rear naked choke attempts, from Ricardo Ramos to even Joe Anderson Brito, even to Spike Carlisle, all talented Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belts and black belts. It's just that Burns' submission chaining ability really scares me. Like, it really scares me being a player who's taking a large stand on Bill Algeo. I made a portion of my lineups where I, locked in Burns, because if he wins, I feel like it's early. He has that round one finishing upside. It's just like being absent from the cage for 2 years, not being acclimated, overcoming ACL reconstruction, first fight back in the octagon in 2 years against the guy that has some momentum on his side in Bill Algeo, going up against a more dangerous, wrestler and grappler than in Joe Anderson Brito. So I don't know. I'm favoring Bill Algeo pretty heavily, but from a typical DFS player's perspective, get to Herbert Burns as well.
Two other fights that we have not mentioned yet. First up, we got Punahele Soriano taking on Dolce here. Soriano 9,200, 7,000 for Dolce. This is a fight that I'm expecting to end via finish. Soriano's the guy that seems like more times when I've backed him, he's not delivered for me, but I mentioned this on Thursday. It's been really tough for me to try to evaluate Dolce without thinking about what we saw in his last fight.
Yeah. I mean, he looked good, right? And he threw everything, at Cody Brundage, and the combinations look great. And his power is always on display. And it looked like he was moments away from being, awarded a round one win. And then he attempts a sloppy takedown and gets guillotined. I think that this fight is going to be a violent affair because Punahele Soriano is a dangerous striker, a pretty powerful southpaw, has some wrestling in his back pocket. Dolce has some judo in his back pocket, but Dolce, just tries to keep the fight on the feet and hit his opponents with big power shots. The defense of Punahele Soriano just makes me a little concerned, because I feel like if you just completely disrespect somebody's ability to touch you on the chin, next thing you know, you're getting woken up, because, little gloves change everything. So I got to Dolce because of his round one upside. But as far as inside the distance fights in a bit better minute winner, it's got to be Punahele Soriano. I mean, he's got tested cardio, and he comes from a better camp, in my opinion. And I think that he's going to, right the wrong. So pretty similar to how Michael Johnson, underperformed in multiple fights. And then against, I forget the person he picked up the nice KO win over, but he finally righted the ship and got that KO win when everybody didn't want to really back him. I think that Punahele Soriano can definitely pick up a win here.
Jorge, I appreciate you in the super chat. He says, thanks again for all the info on this slate. Ducote or Shore for single entry DraftKings GPP, and thoughts on Jourdain as a value fighter, or who's your favorite 7.5K fighter or cheaper? In terms of that DraftKings single entry, Ducote or Shore, I would probably go Emily Ducote.
I would agree with you, just because of how competitive I can see Shore and Simone being.
I like Jourdain as a value fighter more for cash than a GPP. Really? Favorite 7,500 and less fighter.
I like Jourdain just in general today. From under 7,500, I think that him and Matt Schnell are, we got Dustin Stoltzfus there. Yeah. If Stoltzfus wasn't there, I'd say that Jourdain and Schnell are kind of like 1 and 2 for me.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that the Stoltzfus Grant fight, I think, could ultimately be the key to this slate in terms of how this one gets taken down. I mean, look, if Grant goes out there and gets a first round knockout, and with how low we're projecting his ownership to be. That's something that that really sticks out to me. Of course, if you're not a Stokastic Plus member, you got to take advantage of the deal we got going on for you right now. This is for new users of Stokastic Plus. You get 50% off your first week off any Stokastic Plus pass. You can check that out right now. 50% off your first week of any Stokastic Plus pass. All you gotta do is click that link in the video description below, or use that promo code MMALBL for 50% off your first week of any weekly package. Of course, you can do that whether you want to get higher Stokastic Plus Platinum Pass, or maybe if you just want an MMA pass. In terms of that MMA pass, that top fire tool, it's literally the tool that is sitting in front right here on my sheet of paper that I look at in terms of developing my rosters here. And obviously ownership is such a huge thing. And I mentioned about I'll throw out a little nugget for you. Dwight Grant, 14% projected ownership. Like if he goes out there and gets a first round, I mean, even Solfus is still a low owned as well. I mean, like to me, if either one of these guys, Solfus, obviously, maybe if he incorporate that ground game, get those takedowns, control time, rack up points. But if Dwight Grant keep this fight on the feet and he knocks him out at 8,900 and that low of ownership, it's going to be hard for him not to make the optimal line.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the type of fighters you want to get a little bit of exposure to. If nobody's getting exposure to it and you actually think that they have a legitimate shot, like, include them in your lineups. And, there's some fighters I'm looking at right now. I'm like, I like them a lot more than what the public likes.
Yeah. So, I have no idea what Tyro is waving his hands about.
Yeah, no. Everything's good on our side.
Okay. Yeah. It seems like it's working a little bit on my end there, but yeah, of course, you got any questions, be sure to hit those up in chat. We'll get those questions. Of course, we got another 30 minutes here left in the show. Get you ready for this slate. I mentioned about Brian Ortega as he was a guy that I was getting a lot to, and we talked about this on Thursday. Mm-hmm. To me, this is whether you're getting to Ortega or Rodriguez, this has to be a priority. Like someone asked me earlier, they were asking me a single entry question, and it was Ortega or it was somebody else. I forget the other. Maybe it was Emily Ducote as a last fighter in. And I was like, you got to go Ortega because he's a priority for me, whether it's him or Yair Rodriguez.
Yeah.
We mentioned about this a little bit earlier. If this fight stays out on the feet and Ortega starts to, get into a brawl, you really love Yair Rodriguez in that spot. But it's just everything I've taken in this week of things that Brian Ortega has said. It just, to me, it's an indication that Tiki has made an emphasis on him. T. Golston, his head coach, and also his manager, of get this fight to the ground. We have a clear advantage here. That's where to take it. I want to say the submission prop was like plus 180.
Yeah, I think there's value on the submission prop because it's Ortega's best chance to win. And using groups on stokastic.fantasycruncher.com are extremely helpful, especially for me in my lineup construction, because I don't want to avoid this main event. The pricing is broken. You have Ortega at 8,500. You have Yair Rodriguez at 7,700. However this fight goes, unless it's like an insane slate, I find it very hard and very difficult for these guys not to exceed value. I think that they're going to, make it into the optimal lineup, given the 5-round nature. And, there's finishing upside for both of these guys too. We're not talking about like a lackluster decision victory like an Israel Adesanya, Jared Cannonier type of thing. I cannot personally see how this is a boring fight. Yes, they're friendly. Ortega's friendly. Yair's friendly. There's a lot on the line, for their fan base. But I do think that they're going to bring it. I mean, don't mistake the kindness for weakness. I feel like they're going to bring it and test each other in all assets of the game.
Ortega brought up a really interesting point this week of talking about the potential history of this fight of two Mexican fighters headlining a UFC event.
It's pretty awesome, right? Cool.
He was the interview I was listening to. He was going, can you recall any other time where you've had this high profile fight between two Mexican fighters in the UFC? And like, I was sitting there thinking about it and nothing's come to my head.
Let me tell you, I think the UFC from a matchmaking standpoint made some mistakes on the fight card construction, because the Long Island location doesn't really make a lot of sense for me when you only have Burgos on the card. And, you want to tailor the card around a lot of hometown guys. Like, if you're going to have this matchup, I feel like they should have done it in a different area. It just would have made a lot more sense.
Yeah, there's certain fights. I'm surprised that Jack Shore, Ricky Simone fights on the prelims, not the main card. That's one of my things. Next up, my Thor says, he goes, "Hey guys, if you don't trust Pena, who can I pick up for 8K or less?" I'm guessing it's
Jessica Penne.
Yeah. He spelled it like Juliana Pena.
Yeah.
Same lineup, has Waterson in it. Oof, man.
Good Lord. I mean, listen, I sprinkled some Michelle Waterson. Let me see how much I got to. Just because of the fact that women's MMA tends to be close and more often than not, and it goes the distance, and we see a lot of close decisions. So if Michelle presents the best game plan, she could have some success here. She seems like she's in the most efficient shape she's ever been in. I just worry, because she goes from being a little bit bigger to completely shredded out of her mind, like a Patty Pimlet type of weight cut, not as bad. And anytime you're cutting a ton of weight like that, you also have to worry about how it can affect your chin and absorbing a shot. A lot of people don't talk about that. I think that she looks like she's in phenomenal shape. So she's clearly able to go 15 minutes. And that is the big asterisk around Amanda Lemos, is her cardio.
Yeah, I mean, we saw obviously her getting standing arm triangle, which is a move you don't see very often. She did a good job of trying to fire it off there. In terms of that, of course, you got any questions, hit those up in chat. We'll get to those questions as we're here for about a little under 30 minutes from now before we hit lock here. Of course, coming up after us will be the MLB Strategy Show, and we are sponsored by PrizePicks. You got to check out all the daily prop base that they have over there at PrizePicks. Be sure to use that promo code AWESEMO for instant first match deposit of up to $100. And as I look at some of the props over there, Pete, that stick out to me, and the two props that are my favorite over there are both under fight time props, and one being Brian Ortega under 21.5, and the other being under 10 minutes on Puna Soriano.
I really like both of those. The 10 minutes and the Puna one's close, just because of if he drags Dolce late, I think he has a lot more success. It's going to be really, really close, but I have to think that there's value on the unders.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I would say this, takedown props, there was not really anything that really stuck out to me that I just felt like it was a really good line. We talked about a strategy show. I was kind of hoping maybe that Jack Shore one would get like 2.5, and then I would like the under in that situation. Yeah. But not a top play for me. I'm more looking at those fight time props, and maybe another one that I would look at on the fantasy score is a Suma Darji. I want to say it's 94.5. So you get 100 points if it's a first round finish. And I think that's got some high volatility matchups in terms of that. I mean, look, when I was looking at ownership, the Matt Snell ownership, I was like, man.
Yeah, bro, I don't get it. And
it's low. And I'm like, if he goes out there and wins, it's going to be an optimal score.
Right. And okay, the issue is a lot of people, they only view grappling or submission wins by being offensive. So I know he's not the best offensive wrestler in the world. He's not the guy that's going to go out there and, Romanov you and take you down endless times, right? He's shot very, very minimal takedowns, and he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So a lot of times he'll either get knocked down, which is not what you want to hear, right? He'll get knocked down, but he's still dangerous off his back, or people can slip. People can, he can reverse a position, anything like that. And there are so many ways to pick up a submission win. Just think about how armbar from guard. It's pretty similar with Schnell's guard. So I think that he has good striking. It's his durability that's in question here. I think that Suma Darji is clearly the pick, but the ownership is just disrespectful.
It's an ownership play. of why I'm getting there. Every week when I'm looking at our ownership projections, my eyes automatically go to fighters who are under 20%.
Yeah.
And going, okay, where can I get leverage on the field?
Right, exactly. And I don't think that Everett knows how to play DFS, because for weeks at a time, he's been talking about certain fights, and like picking fights is great to build lineups, but also understanding leverage on the field is extremely important. So like, if you're telling me that if he's going completely under owned, that you don't want to get a little bit more than the ownership, you're just not playing DFS correctly. Because from a leverage standpoint and an ownership standpoint, there are some areas of Sumudaerji's game that are completely untested. And if you go back and you think about it, there's a fight where he looks completely like a fish out of water on the mat. So, you know what I mean? I'm picking Sumudaerji to win. I'm picking him to win via knockout, but I'm still sprinkling in Matt Schnell because from an upside standpoint, he has upside in a victory.
And talking about that upside, there are 4 fighters who I'm looking at as upside plays. I'm not picking them to win the fight, but looking at it from an upside perspective. Schnell being one of them, Dolce being another one. Looked absolutely tremendous against Cody Brunge, was lighting Cody Brunge up on the feet, starts to wear down.
Mm-hmm.
Bad fight IQ, gets guillotined. Another one, Dwight Grant. Knockout potential in the first round, low ownership. And the final fighter I'll mention, don't like her to win the fight, but if she goes out there and wins, she's going to rack up points with takedowns and control time, and that's Jessica Penne.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, exactly. You have to think of, right, if you're a single entry player, as you are, okay, I wouldn't put Schnell in a single entry. But if you did put Schnell in a single entry, you already know that you have a ton of leverage on the field. I view him as a GPP type of guy, a 150 max, where a large majority of the field is just completely ignoring him. And, underdogs with upside is what we want to target, not underdogs that can squeak out decisions all the time.
Yeah, I mean, even for me, in a 20 max, I'm still trying to get Schnell into 2 or 3 lineups just because of that potential upside. And I use the thought process, when I'm playing a 20 max is I'm trying to create as many possible scenarios as I can to get different from the field. Alex has talked about this a long time. Don't play against yourself, play against the field. When you're multi-entering lineups in there. My filler says, he goes, Muslim Salikov, is he any good? Never heard of him. Have you never heard of the King of Kung Fu? Come on, man.
The King of Kung Fu. So, I mean, from a box score standpoint and a typical, production standpoint, he looks like a terrible play. Salikov at 8,600 looks like a terrible play. Only surpassed 100 points once, and that was against Nordine Taleb, and that was a first-round knockout. And it's due to his volume and being a selective striker. So he's a sniper of a striker. I think that being a sniper has its pros and cons. From a volume standpoint, he could be behind. And then it comes down to, what do the judges weigh? Are they weighing activity or are they weighing effectiveness? And, sometimes some judges get those things a little bit confused and those lines get blended a little bit. So that is the worry with Salikov for me, is just not throwing enough. If this is competitive on the feet, I think it's going to be a stand-up affair. We have seen Salikov go to the takedown well, same with Jing Liang, but I feel like they're going to nullify each other in that standpoint, and they're just going to stand and trade. So I got the Salikov plenty just because I think that there are some defensive mistakes of Jing Liang.
By the way, just looking at some, long shot prop bets, Matt Schnell wins via submission plus 600.
Yeah, no, that is a thank you. I'm going to go play that. And that is going to go right there with an Ortega. I might even do I don't do prop bets parlays, but I just, for the heck of it, I might do an Ortega and Schnell sub prop bet parlay. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm not big on betting, parlay props, but or parlaying props together. But yeah, Schnell plus 600, man. That's even the Ortega. I think I saw it earlier this morning. It was plus 180. Him win via submission. I think if you want to get away from that minus money, that's, to me, is where you go.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Morning chat is popping off, and I love it. Thank you guys for joining us today. We got 500 in chat. Let's get it to 150 likes. We really, really appreciate you. 20 minutes left in the stream.
Yeah, just kind of looking back at some questions earlier on in the chat, maybe some stuff that we have not talked about. Soriano Usumadarji.
I have more questions about Sumudarji, so especially strength of schedule, even though I think that he wins. So I'm going to pick Punahele Soriano. It's good, though. It's a good question.
Let's see here. Looks some other questions that may have not come in quite yet. Yair is only live 1-2 rounds. You won't win a decision. I definitely do not agree with that.
No, I don't agree with that either, especially if Ortega kind of gets lured into a brawl, as I keep saying, and they just want to put it on an entertaining fight. That's a mistake.
Yeah. I will tell you, Lauren Murphy, I think, is another potential interesting low-owned fighter. My fear would be is that even in a win, maybe she only gets like 70 points. That'd be my concern with that.
Yeah, that's my concern. But certain slates, 70 points is enough to make it into the optimal lineup. It's a salary play and also completely dependent on the rest of the performance from the underdog. So 70 points isn't the worst, but it damn sure ain't the best. We want 600.
Marcos brings up the stat. First fight of the night for the last 3 years has been optimal 48.9% of the time.
Marcos is the man.
However, the last 3 weeks have been optimal, and it says I'm honestly considering fading Penne and Ducote.
Marcos is the man.
It's interesting stat
in here. That's a hell of a stat. Can't necessarily confirm it, but I trust him. So and it seems like it because I remember Jason would just hate it all the time, and I would always be on the wrong end.
I still do, bro. I still like. It's one of those things of like, you lose if you go heavy on that first fight, which I've been known to do, and then it doesn't go your way. It ruins the rest of the slate for me, bro. It just ruins it.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to ruin yourself. What? Imagine 11 a.m. lineups ruined. Like if Bill Algeo was the first fight of the night, 11 a.m. might be the earliest like curtains I've ever had. So hopefully.
So you would fall asleep?
No, definitely not. I would just be, upset and then move on. That's it.
I mean, I just had to throw that out there, but you tell me and Tyler we can't take a nap today.
Yeah, I'm damn sure not taking a nap. You guys tweet at me, just let me know. Just let's have some conversation while the fight's going on. I just can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love.
Oh my God, remember when Mike Jackson ruined everyone's night a few months back? Says Eric. Oh, God, that was the worst, and that was a disqualification win. Like that's what I'm saying. Like anything can happen. So if you're playing,
I feel bad for Sean Shelby that he has to figure out who the hell do I put against Mike Jackson next.
My record was better. Call me up. I gotta get back in. I gotta get back in the win column, bro.
Bro, I feel like if you went to Sean Shelby and said, "Bro, who is the toughest fighter to matchmake?" He might say Mike Jackson. He might.
Yeah, help me get rid of that guy for you. Jesus.
Now there's other fighters that that people may not want to fight. Like I imagine there's not too many people when they get that phone call. Hey man, you want to fight Merab?
Yeah. That's a no. That's a no. Goodness.
It's like I was interviewing Roman Feraldo who fights on the Bellator show next Friday, and he told me 3 fighters all on the Bellator roster turned down a fight against him.
I mean, at some point, right? And I think it was Burgos in his presser. He was talking about how the rankings make things a little bit more difficult because once you get that number attached to your name, you're X amount of fights away from a title. So it makes fighters be a little bit more selective and carefully pick their next opponent. So you always want a stylistic matchup that makes sense, but fighting somebody outside the rankings is a rarity. And we see it as a mistake half the time. I mean, look what just happened with Sean Strickland and Pereira, right? He took that risk that nobody wanted to take. And now Pereira's ranked and is going to, pass everybody in the rankings because it's the fight that's going to sell.
Yeah, he's going to get the title shot next. Being plain and simple. Best 9K cash fighter.
Ooh, what a question. I am going to go. So we talking upside or are we talking confidence?
I would say confidence.
I'm going to say Soriano.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably go Soriano as well. That's probably where I would go with that.
Yeah. Oh man, my boy Matt Whitmore, one of my students and one of my boys, is at UFC Long Island today. He's at 3 Bloody Marys deep, and he's about to walk into UBS Arena, and he says it's a dog day. And I think that, you know, a lot of dogs are barking today, and we could see a ton of salary left on the table. So if you're spending all your salary today, I think it's a mistake. Leave some on the table because things are going to get weird, and there's tons of competitive matchups.
Look, I just want you know, they need to do a crowd shot at 11 a.m. And can you point out how many people are probably there hungover?
Yeah. How many people are there in general? Because the prelims, it's disrespectful how many people don't show up.
It's a hardcore fan. It's like
right.
It's like if you go to a car in Vegas, you want to find out who the real hardcore fans are. They're the fans that are there first. Like there's a couple of celebrities that will show up in Vegas for the very first fight of the night because they just love fights.
Yeah, isn't like Chris Pratt too? Like I think that he's big MMA guy. So but yeah, so leave salary on the table. Tons of underdogs that we're talking about have paths to victory. A lot of weeks we don't love a ton of dogs, but this week I could see 4 of them winning. No question.
We'll let you know about a promo we got going on right now as Underdog has launched their Puppy 2 Best Ball contest for the upcoming NFL season. And you want to reserve your spot before it quickly fills up. With this, we're offering $1 weekly access to our Best Ball kit through Sunday, July the 15th. That's $8.99 off the original weekly price. This package includes Best Ball and season-long fantasy football rankings, Underdog daily draft rankings, our Best Ball stacking guide, cheat sheets, premium articles, and more. To activate this offer, use the promo code PUPPY at checkout or simply click the link in the video description below. That's promo code PUPPY for $1 weekly Best Ball draft kit access. Also, subscribe to our Stokastic fantasy football and Best Ball YouTube channels for daily videos from our experts that will give you an edge on the competition. Check us out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. Of course, NFL season right around the corner. We 28 days, Pete, until my first preseason game.
Oh man, I'm not even ready for football yet. I'm just not.
I'm always ready for football.
Yeah,
I'm always ready.
Hey, what do we got? We have like what, 1 or 2 more cards, and then the streak of the UFC cards end.
Sounds about right.
Okay, because we've been on a tear week after week after week, and the community, Stokastic community, has been here every single week, and we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, this has been the stretch of UFC events for 12 weeks. So we've got the London card next week. Then we got the pay-per-view on the 30th. Then we have Santos and Hill on August 6th. August 13th, you got Vera and Cruz. August 20th, UFC 278. And then there is a break. There's no then they don't come back till the beginning of September for that Paris card.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, I'm probably going to be doing a stream, on vacation in the Dominican. We'll have Jason in the booth at some of his Bucks games, still streaming these live before locks and strategy shows. So it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks, but this slate today is one of the most interesting we've had in a very, very long time. It's not going to be a boring slate where the chalk wins. We're going to have a lot of chalk bust today.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was just kind of just scrolling through my Twitter timeline to make sure there's no major breaking news.
I know. Don't tell me that.
Because I will tell you someone to follow and to kind of tell his picks. He actually is really good. Is Bilal Muhammad.
Yeah, Bilal. Listen, I love tailing, other fighters and just seeing what they like. But we all have our biases, of course. So if you can just leave your bias aside.
Oh, of course. Well, that's tough.
It's tough.
It's tough in this industry. I mean,
oh my God. Saif Din with a super chat, $4.99. Thank you so much. He says, hi, I have a lineup where I left 5,100 on the table. Is that too wild?
Woo.
Goodness gracious. Oh my goodness. That is a lot of salary to be left on the table, and you are extremely unique. I feel like it's a little too much, but all depending on your risk tolerance. I'm kind of in that 2,500 and under category because I do think that there are some 9,000 options that are going to come through. But this is a week where I can see a couple of them laying an egg. But you might want to let it ride, as Mahler says. So you're going to solo hit, as Manny says as well.
I mean, man, that's a ton of money. Sam mentions Ricky Simone has been in the optimal lineup the most. My only fear with Ricky Simone today is simply along the equations of what happens if there is just a fight that plays out in the feet. That's my concern with him.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. And I just can't wait to watch the fight. We'll have to see. I stacked that fight in a several. I did a 20 max, right, where I just completely went wild. I did stacking the Simone and Shore fight. I also stacked the Shane Burgos and Jourdain fight. 2 high volume, crazy fights that I could see the loser doing well in. And I also stacked the main event. I'm not big on stacking, guys, but a portion of your lineups, you can get a little bit wild with it.
Corey says, Pete, I'm not talking trash, but I got burns everywhere.
That's
Talk
okay.
Me off the ledge.
Hey, Corey, man, I think that from a round one upside, you're talking about Burns having some of the best opportunities. What can he do with those opportunities? And does the layoff affect him? I kind of hedged myself a little bit. I didn't go as wild, but I hedged myself with a bunch of Burns lineups, but it's definitely not near my Algeo exposure. The only thing, if Algeo never really gave up his back, I think he wins this fight 8 out of 10 times. He gives up his back, it's more like 7 out of 10 times, 6 out of 10 times. So, Corey, I'd probably let it ride, man.
Someone asked us to talk a little bit about FanDuel, and I'm just looking at what we're projecting for FanDuel ownership, and it's very related to how we've been talking about DraftKings. Like, you look at the Grant and Stolfus fight, where it's a fight that overall is getting lower ownership. And 17 for Grant, 14 for Stolfus. There is some good value, I think, over on the FanDuel side of the equation here today. I mentioned about Ricky Simone at $13. I like that value over there on DraftKings, on FanDuel. $12 Jourdain, I think, is interesting. $11 Li Jialing, I think, is another interesting value play over there.
Yeah, I mean, man, what the hell is with this FanDuel ownership? Dalcha, for being what he is at 16%, his style is pretty favored on FanDuel. He's a striker. He's a finisher. He's a round one guy. Do I like him in the matchup? No, but the ownership is ridiculously low. And outside of that, like even Dustin Jacoby, right? Like, as you mentioned, it's him and Li Jingliang kind of just a little bit under-owned, if you want my honest opinion, over on that slate. And Matt Schnell under-owned everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. All platforms.
Yeah, because it's one of those things of you have to, like, to me, it's always about what is a fighter's upside in a victory. And Schnell and Dalcha are 2 guys that if you tell me they go out and win today, it's, I'm expecting that it's going to be a 90+ point or more performance from both of those guys. So, like, to me, when you're playing multi-entries, like, I understand if you're a single entry, you're just trying to find the best possible lineup and minimal risk. But when you're playing, whether it's in a 150 max, a 20 max, whatever it may be, that's where I want to take some shots. I want to take shots on Dalcha, on Matt Schnell, on Jessica Penne. Other ones I would say that I would look at taking shots on. Li Jialing, I think, would be another one that I would want to take some shots on. Yeah,
I mean, so like avoiding duds is how you can have success in single entry, and min cachings, in my opinion, it's pointless. Because we want to take shots at winning in that top couple percent. And in order to do so, you have to fade some chalk and you have to ride some chalk as well. So weighing the odds and finding how you can get leverage on the field. We say it over and over again, and avoiding having, like, in a competitive matchup, the Burgos and Jourdain, there's question marks on both sides, right? But you don't want to be left with a goose egg or a single digit performance.
Yeah, I mean, the Burgos Jourdain fight to me is just a question of, as long as Shane Burgos doesn't get into a brawling type situation, I like him in that scenario, but we know how this fight game is.
I was just going to say, bro, what are you talking about? I think that they've got to get into a brawling type. That's the only way this man fights. He is a monster. And I hope he doesn't walk into a shot depending on his head movement too much, because he's the better fighter than Jourdain. But the better fighter doesn't always win. And that's why we're getting exposure to some of these underdogs.
We'll mention fighters who could go the takedown route today. Brian Ortega.
I love this question.
I will say Matt Schnell, Miesha Tate, Lauren Murphy as well. Sure, Simone.
Takedown
Jung.
city candidates, we're saying?
Yeah. Stolfus.
I'm saying, okay, so for me, if I had to give you mine, I would say Miesha Tate, Ortega, Ricky Simone, Stolfus, Schnell. Yeah.
And of course, and looking at who's going to throw down bungalows, I'm going to look at 2 fights. Punahele and Dolce and Burgos and Jourdain. Those 2 guys, those 2 fights, they throwing them bungalows.
Yes, sir.
Of course, you can check out myself and Pete every week here on the Stokastic YouTube channel. Also over on OddsShopper, you check out Takedown City. That show comes out every Wednesday night. It's myself and Pete breaking down the main cards from the betting side of UFC. On next week's episode, along with breaking down the UFC, we're also going to talk a little about Bellator. They got a fight card on Friday, so we'll pop over some bets that we like over there on that Bellator show. So you got to check out Takedown City over on the OddsShopper YouTube channel. Pete, as we kind of start to wrap things up here, anything you want to throw out there for our listeners?
I just want to say thank you guys for hanging out with us. Morning MMA show, and now we got some daytime fights, and there is nothing better. Sit back, enjoy it, and let us know what you think of the fights. Interact with us, whether it's through Discord that all of our members at Stokastic.com have. In addition to that, you can find us on Twitter at PTHeatMMA, at Jason_Floyd. Again, we appreciate you guys so much, and it's always fun when we talk fights with you guys.
Yeah, someone has to Bellator have DFS. I wish they would. That's why anytime PrizePicks puts up Bellator props, especially for the human sacrifice hour known as the Bellator prelims, I'm always targeting those fight time prop unders.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to push this that Bellator does it, and we'll see. I'm trying to talk to a couple people that I know, and hopefully it happens for the community.
Hey, have you, before I gave you the slogan of the human sacrifice hour, did you not know that term?
I mean, I didn't know that. I basically, understood what it was, but it's a great term for it.
Yeah, it's I cannot credit for that name. That has been on the MMA Twitter sphere for a long time. You just, especially if you follow regional MMA.
Yeah, it's
you kind of have a good idea of who the A side is and who the B side of the fight is.
Yes, sir.
You can really tell there. But of course, appreciate everyone checking us out. MLB Strategy Show coming on next, guys. Get you ready for today's MLB slate. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Be sure to smash that thumbs up button, and we will talk to you next week on Takedown City and right here on the Stokastic Strategy Show. Have a good day, everybody.